Okay, so here's my Williams Taxi pinball machine that I'm having some issues with. Overall, I've got it working. Everything's fantastic on the machine, other than none of my GI lights on the back box are working. All of the GI and the game itself is working fine, but just the back box, as you can see, none of the lights are working. So after I did some troubleshooting, I opened up the back box here and basically tried to test the voltages. There's a relay back here. I made sure the relay was functioning properly. But ultimately what I discovered is there is no power coming to any of these lights here. So I just used my multimeter and tested connection here on all of these lines and got no voltage whatsoever. So if you notice the color of the wires here, let's put some light up here. It's a little hard to see, but they're white and brown, and then solid brown. There's also some other ones here as well. Anyway, tracing these wires back all the way back into the back box leads me to this particular connector right down here. And you'll see that in fact these are the same colored wires. There's that brown wire that is not getting any power, and there's the green wire also that feeds the back box. So it's pretty obvious to see what the issue is here, and that is that this connector over time with the voltage going through it has pretty much just fried this thing. So it looks like that's going to be my problem. So this is J7, as you see right here, on this little interconnect board. So certain versions of the System 11 here incorporated this interconnect board. So I had checked all the fuses to make sure everything was okay there, but this definitely looks like my problem. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to remove this header here and just replace it. You can see if you look closely it's got some discoloration there, so no point in taking any chances there. You can definitely see the difference here in these over to the right versus these that have some damage. So I'm going to remove this board. I'm going to replace this header pin here. I'm going to also have to replace this Molex connector here. So that's the plan. So let's pull the board out and replace this connector. Okay, I've got the board out now. You can see it was quite an effort. There are a lot of connectors that have to come off of this thing, so make sure you take good pictures before you pull it out. You can see here just the number of connectors that are associated with this board, and then in particular, again, this is why we're going to replace the header here. You can see there's just a fair amount of damage right here to these pins, again compared to these over here. So we're going to go ahead and desolder this and replace this header pin and see if this fixes our problem. Okay, I've got the board out now. You can see it was quite an effort. There are a lot of connectors that have to come off of this thing, so make sure you take good pictures before you pull it out. You can see here just the number of connectors that are associated with this board, and then in particular, again, this is why we're going to replace the header here. You can see there's just a fair amount of damage right here to these pins, again compared to these over here. So we're going to go ahead and desolder this and replace this header pin and see if this fixes our problem. Okay, so again, we've got the board out. We're talking about J7 here on this interconnect board, and we're going to replace this header here. So basically we can see where the damage is here. We're just going to desolder this 10-pin header. I've got another one here that we'll replace it with. So let's go ahead and desolder this. Okay, so at this point I've got the old one desoldered, cleaned up pretty nicely. And I have a 10-pin header here, but remember the headers are all keyed. This is to prevent you from plugging the wrong female into the male here. So you'll notice throughout many of these are missing pins in certain locations. Again, this is to prevent you from plugging the wrong thing into the wrong thing. So we need to do the same thing here. This is actually a 10-pin header, as you see, pins 1 through 10, but actually pin number 1, 2, 3, 4 is missing. So it's a simple process. Just grab your needle nose pliers, and I went right here into pin number 4 and removed it from this 10-pin header. So at this point, it's just a matter of seating the connectors down into the board here as such, and making sure that we get the orientation correctly. And there we go. So now we've got the 10-pin header in with pin number 4 missing, and it's just a matter of flipping the board over and resoldering it here, and then moving on to the connector itself. So here we go. Okay, so we've got the 10 pins now soldered on, cleaned up as good as we can, and a new 10-pin header on with pin number 4 keyed out. So it looks like it's in there pretty snug at this point. So we are now ready to move over to the connector. So let's go ahead and go replace that connector. Okay, so here we are now for the second half of this. Basically what we're going to do is we're just going to take our wire cutters here and clip each one of these wires off. And I've got here a replacement Molex connector that we will then have to repin these wires here to fit into this connector. So let's go ahead and first clip the wires, and then we'll strip them back and put the connectors on. Okay, so we've got the wires cut, stripped to about 1/8 of an inch each. It's a little hard to see. And what we're going to need to do now is take these little connectors here and crimp these onto the wire so that we can build up our new connector. Now, in order for me to know the order in which to put these back, I've left a little bit of wire exposed here, so repinning the new one and making sure I plug them up into the right connectors should be a piece of cake. So we'll go ahead and pin these out and build our new connector. Okay, so using the Waldrom crimper tool here with the AB settings, I use the B for this particular gauge wire. I've gone ahead and created my crimps here, and really all that's left now is to drop these down into this little Molex connector here. I've blocked off pin number 4 there, as you can see, and plugging everything back up. So let's give it a go. Okay, so as you can see, we've got the new Molex connector on now with the 5 pins properly seated. We've got a block out pin in there so we won't position it incorrectly. So really all that's left now is we just need to take the board here with our new header pin on it and put it back in, plug everything up, and see if it works. Okay, so I think we're ready for the moment of truth. We have the new connector in. We've got all of the other connectors plugged back in here to the main interconnect board. So let's give this a go here. See if we can, well, we've got a little bit of a tangle here. That's close enough. Let's flip the power on and see what happens here. And there we go. Just like magic. We have our back box GI problem solved. So just a matter of putting some LEDs in now, and don't think we'll have that problem again. So hopefully you found this YouTube video helpful. This is how you replace a Molex connector and solve a back box problem with your General Illumination on a Williams System 11 pinball machine.